All right, in this video, I'm going to walk you through this portrait painting that I did of my dad and really focus on the beginning stages and show you how you can start a painting with no fear and be expressive and confident. Welcome to Paint Coach. My name is Chris Fornatero, and I help thousands of students every single month get better at oil painting through my online courses and tutorials that simplify the whole process. All right, now before I get into this, I'm just gonna let you know that Paint Week is coming up soon. It's starting September 16th. If you don't know what Paint Week is, it's a free online course that I give out once, maybe twice a year. This is definitely the last time I'm doing it this year, so you don't want to miss out on it. During the week, we're going to do plain fruit exercise. We're going to do a still life painting. We're going to do a landscape painting. It's going to be a whole lot of fun. There's over 3,000 people already signed up for it. And at the end of Paint Week on Saturday, the 21st, I'm going to be doing a live Q&A presentation and just really diving into oil painting and giving you my best advice to get better. So if you want to check that out and sign up, a link to do that is in the description of this video. So today I want to talk about portraits and mainly focus on the beginning stages and try and get you to be less careful and more expressive with your paintings. And one of the people I first think of when I think of expressive portraits, especially at the beginning stages, is Michael Shane Neal. I took a workshop with him, and just seeing him paint in person was something to see, because when he started a portrait painting, he really was expressive with his brushwork, and he would put his brush down and make these big, bold marks. And one of the reasons I like his book so much, Portrait Painting My Point of View, is that he puts progression shots of his portraits in there. And you can see the expressive brushwork in the beginning that doesn't necessarily show up at the end of the painting, but I feel like it's very important to have in there at the beginning. A perfect example is this one. This is a painting he did, and he put these progression shots in his book. And I just find it so interesting how he has marks like in the hair right here and right here, which are very bold. Same with like right here, right here. It's just a lot of bold single strokes that say so much. But when you look at the final painting, you don't necessarily see that brush stroke in here. You don't see this dark stroke right there. But it's important to have, because it is stating something very clear and obvious for the painter. I always compare it to like writing a story. If you were going to write a novel, not necessarily, unless you're Stephen King, we'll just like start typing the story from chapter 1. You will make an outline. You'll block it out. You'll say, first they're going to find the treasure map. Then they're going to get in their car and go out in the desert to look for it. And then their car breaks down. And then they get lost. And then at some point they're going to, run out of water. Like, you have these distinct bullet points and these distinct events that aren't extremely thought out or detailed yet, but you want them to be bold, clear, and obvious at that point. A good way to start a portrait is because you can always massage things and finesse things to be more specific as you go, which you can see he does in the second photo here. Like, still very simple, like still no eyes, just eye sockets. The mouth is pretty much like two values. You got a dark value for the top lip and a light value for the bottom lip. Those marks that we pointed out earlier in the hair are pretty much lost at this point, but just because they're not there doesn't mean they're not important. Having brushwork like that, or just being able to state things very clear, is an indicator of the knowledge backing up your brushwork and your strokes and the shapes and values that you're putting on there. Don't get painting loose confused with painting sloppy. It's quite the opposite, and I feel like it takes a lot more knowledge to paint loose, because you can't rely on details to communicate what you want. You really have to know what you're doing with the fundamentals in terms of value and color and simplification and drawing. So I just wanted to show you this real quick. I think it's a great example of starting a painting with expressive brushwork and ending a lot tighter than you started, but still loose, expressive, yet accurate. So many people ask me, like, how do you paint loose portraits? And I look at their paintings and they tell me like how they start. And I'm like, well, you're starting super tight. And so if you start super tight and detailed and a small brush, it's going to be really hard at the end, as you go, to get looser. It's very difficult to do that. But now I'm going to throw up a photo of my painting. So this is a painting of my dad. In the first frame here, you can see all I did was just block out the shadow shapes. And this is helpful with drawing to simplify the face into these simple shapes. Drawing these simple shapes is a lot easier than just trying to straight up draw a face and all the detail and everything. You can also see I connected shapes. All the shapes are connected except this eye socket right there. The next thing that I did was I put in the background. I like getting the background in early. I utilize that throughout the painting to help with edges, with the hair, and also the color. I actually took that color and worked it into the wet paint of the shadow that's already there to create this reflected light. You can see in the photo just how there's these areas that have that reflected light, and I wanted to get that in early and work it into that wet paint. And you can see, just like with this brush stroke right there, I'm communicating that brow bone already. So you can see I took the background and I just pulled that right into the collar there. And this is like a perfect example of what I want you to take away from this video, is not being afraid to make bold decisions like that. But again, you have to back up those decisions with knowledge. And I did that because when I squint my eyes, I lose the edge of the collar there. And so I'm taking note of that in a very bold way and saying like, all right, I'm just going to bring that right into there. Because I know, like you can see as I go, I can add in certain colors and values and distinguish it as a collar. But just getting that in early and stating that very like boldly, I feel like helps me as I progress into the painting. All right, so by this third frame, I'm just putting in midtones. The blank canvas is pretty much where the lights are gonna be, but you can see strokes like this right here. I'm not afraid to just state that as simply as I can. It's just pretty much like I'm taking notes at this point and just taking note of things like how this down here gets darker, how this side plane of the face gets darker, because you can see that in the photo here. Like this side plane where the face or the head turns is definitely a lot darker than this front plane that is facing the light. And so I put that in areas like this brow bone here. There's a lot of little shapes and stuff in the face in the photo right here, but I'm not worrying about that right now. I just want to communicate the big form, just establish the big form of this brow, of this head. I'm also utilizing soft edges with the hair right there, just bringing that color right into the color of the hair. In this fourth frame here, this is where I feel like things start to get really, really fun. And I start doing things like blocking out planes a lot more clear. You can see these distinguished planes through color and value changes. This is a lot darker, and it progressively gets lighter as it gets into the light and then starts going dark again. So getting things like that. If you ever seen me do the plane face exercise where I'll paint a face with just planes, I'm kind of doing that at this point too. You can see very clear plane shapes like this triangle right there, indicating that plane change in the face. Same over there, it's dark. Starting to indicate it a little bit more with the nose. You can see I'm not like drawing out the nose or outlining. I'm just breaking it down into simple shapes right now. And I do things like this mark right here for this highlight and put that in very boldly, knowing that I will finesse it. You can see as I do, as I move on, but just getting that in there and just making that statement and putting a light value like that is really helpful, because it's going to help me gauge the other values. And I know that any other value that I put in should not be as light as that. So that's like a really helpful thing to do towards the beginning. And as I move forward, now I'm starting to like really finesse things and kind of sculpt and mold the clay more specifically. I'm getting smaller shapes like this lighter shape there, added a little light shape there to communicate the bridge of the nose. I got rid of, this lovely stroke that I like. It got pretty much gone. There's like a little sliver of it there, but I needed that there as a placeholder to kind of mold and figure out the rest of the portrait. And there's other areas like right here on the forehead where I've really worked and smoothed the transition from dark to light right there. I've also worked the hair a little more. I've pulled up some of that skin tone into the hair and gotten that smooth transition, added soft little highlights to just add a little bit more form to it. You can see with the beard, it's just like a matter of changing colors and using soft edges. I didn't go in there and start painting individual hairs, but just changing to that cooler color, you know, right there, a little grayer of a color. And you can see in the end here, just being able to communicate that mainly just with the color shift and also keeping it very soft, very, very soft transition, and then letting that wet paint blend together. And then by the end here, it's a lot of smaller things I'll actually put in the eyes. I like to wait on the eyes until kind of the last minute or as far as I can, because just figuring out the eye sockets and, you know, the eye lids and just all the area around the eye helps me place it instead of just kind of like guessing. Areas, I push different colors, like in the cheeks here, that's a slightly different color. Getting more specific with these lighter shapes. I did finesse the transition right here. You can see how there is this harsh line right there, but by here, gotten rid of that. And it also isn't until right here that I put in a lot of lighter shapes into the collar right there. I've also gone in and put in like the lighten on the nose, dialed in the form of this nose a lot more. You can see more that reflected light communicating the bottom part of the nose, more detail in the mouth. Whereas in here, very simple, you know, you can see just a lot of simple shapes to communicate the mouth, but by the end here, really finessed it and dialed it in. All right, hope you enjoyed this video. Hopefully this can help you portrait paintings with more confidence and be more expressive and less scared and less careful. This is actually the first portrait that I've done in this new format video with the, you know, cliff notes of the painting and everything. If you like this format with portrait paintings, please let me know in the comments section. I'll keep making more of these. All right. I'm Chris Fornatero, here telling you to go get painting.